Next up, it's Brett from Maumelle. I recently received a pretty big inheritance, north of $100,000. I'm 42. Should I pay down house debt, only debt, saying that's the only debt he has, invest more in retirement, currently at about $345,000, both, or something totally different altogether? Glad that you're pondering that, Brett, and you didn't say you wanted to go to the casino. So kudos for you. But the answer is, as so often the case it depends on where you are. You gave us some great information. We know the amount that can help, north of $100,000, so roughly we know the amount. We know your age, and we know that your only debt is your mortgage. And we know what currently you have in retirement savings. That is a great snapshot of the now. What you need to know is, depending on how you use that $100,000, what change does it make on all of those levers? We want generally, Janet, for people to be mortgage-free when they enter retirement. Right. So certainly Brett, assuming he's going to retire at a pretty common or popular age between 60 and 65, has a lot of time to pay off that mortgage. So will this inheritance make a huge difference if it all goes to the mortgage? I think it depends.
So let's talk about just kind of sequence of prioritization of dollars. And this first one I'm going to mention, I would assume, Brett, that you already have this in order, given that you have almost $350,000 in your retirement accounts. You probably have a solid emergency fund, but I don't want to make that assumption and just roll on. So if you don't already have that established, and we're talking about 3 to 6 months of expenses, not of income, but of expenses, if you don't already have that established, that is absolutely step one for you to be able to address. We know you don't have any other debt, so you're in good shape there, but for our other listeners who maybe have some income coming in unexpectedly, if you're in a situation where you have debt beyond the mortgage, then that would be your next focal point to begin to use some of these dollars. Another thing to ask, since you said that you're in your 40s, what about kids and college education? Is this something that you would need or want to utilize for that? I'll tell you, in my family, we come from a family that college education has historically been a big deal, even in a time when it wasn't. Like for a lot of people, as an example, my grandmother had a college degree at a time when very few women didn't. But we're also at a time now where I think, a lot of people can go to trade school and don't need to go to college. And I think that is an excellent choice. So it kind of depends on how your kids are wired, if there are even children in the picture here for you. So if that's a priority, certainly being able to set aside some of these dollars for the kids, for their college education. And then, Scott, let's talk about retirement versus the house.
Yeah, so we would have a preference to make sure through the planning process that you're on track for your retirement goals before we bring into the equation whether you should add to the mortgage or lowering the mortgage with some of this inherited money. And you don't know if you're on track without putting that plan together. And that goes back to our contribution rate. We don't know, Brett, how much you're adding to that $345,000 in retirement savings. We don't know when you want to retire. Think about those things and go through the planning process. And if you are on track with your contribution rate to get to your retirement savings goal, then you have some flexibility to use this money that you've inherited to push down that mortgage payment. But even if you have to enter retirement with a mortgage, it's our preference is to be on track for retirement first. And at 42, the other question I didn't ask here is this your forever home? Do you plan to be in this home forever? Because that matters too on when you pay down that mortgage. How much do you owe on the house? That's another big component too. If you had this mortgage for very long before rates went up, then you probably have a pretty stellar mortgage rate. And when you think about the rate of return on investments versus a potential sub-4, sub-3 mortgage, right, you really have an advantage to getting those dollars into the investments. It is possible to use all that money, but it doesn't change. Does it change? That's a question we would ask. Does it change your day-to-day financial situation by adding it to the mortgage payments?
Yeah, I think you want to be sure that you have not just a financial victory here, but the feeling of having a financial victory, because just putting it all towards the mortgage like Scott said, you're not really going to feel like, other than looking at your mortgage balance, it's not going to make a difference month in, month out. One of the things on the mortgage that I would encourage really most people to consider is, what is your earliest potential, I want to be ready to retire at this age? And then run an amortization schedule from where you are to that age and go, okay, how much extra would we need to put towards the mortgage in order to have it paid at that point? And whether it is a lump sum extra principal payment one time, like from this inheritance situation, or whether it is an additional payment, depending on what the circumstances are. And for Brett, I think you could carve off, X amount of this towards the mortgage and then just continue your regular payments moving forward. But you've knocked that down enough, and then you can take the rest of this and use, otherwise in your financial picture.
Here's another question that you have to ask yourself too, Brett, is when are you planning to retire? Because if all $345,000 are in qualified accounts like 401ks and IRAs, and you plan to retire before age 59 and a half, this is a great opportunity to build in some non-qualified investments. The $100,000 could be kept outside of retirement accounts, but invested for retirement so that you could have money to bridge between, let's say you want to retire at age 55, that money could help you eventually bridge between 55 and 59. But one final thing we'll say too before moving off to the final question. At this age, you have a lot of flexibility. And I did kind of jokingly say, I'm glad you didn't think about taking this to the casino, and we'd never recommend that. But it is possible, once you have all these planning points in clear focus, to take a piece of that and do something fun.
Yeah,
I think that's important too.
It's important to us, I think, in how you and I are both wired, and to many of our clients, to honor the person who gave you this inheritance, whoever that person was to you. Think about the things that were important to them. I talked about on my mom's side of the family, especially just the keen focus on college education. If I were to receive something right now, it would go towards my daughter's college education, because I know what a priority that would have been in our family. And so that's just something to kind of think about, like, how do you honor the person who made sure that you received this inheritance?